Iraq, and we may get into that in just a moment, but I want to share with you why the country of Persia, which is mentioned in the Ezekiel battle, Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, we talked about this on the DVD you're watching, the Battle of Gog and Magog. Why are they so active? Here's the reason why. Because the Muslims have what we call apocalyptic beliefs. They have beliefs in the last days and the time of the end just like we do. However, let's go back a little earlier in their history and understand what they believe, why they believe it, and why things are going the way they are right now. If you go back and you begin to study the death of Muhammad, after Muhammad, the founder of Islam, died, the religion split between two groups. It split between a group that was called the Sunni and a group called the Shia, because there were two different leaders that took over Islam, both claiming to be the heir of the Prophet's mantle. Well, what began to happen was this. These two groups began to fight each other. Now, the Sunni branch began to kill the first 11 leaders of the Shiite branch. And the one after the other. Some said they were poisoned, some said they were beheaded. There's different stories about each one. Now, one of the things that became interesting, and I want to share this with you, is that there was a man by the name of Ali that was killed in Iraq, one of the Shiite leaders in the area of Kufa near Najaf, and later a shrine would be built to him. So the first through the 11th Shiite leaders were killed by the Sunnis, and this battle went on for quite some time. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. We're going to abbreviate this for you to help you to try to make it as simple as possible. In the Islamic religion, the 10th and the 11th leader of the Shiite branch, Ali and a man named Hussein, were killed in the country of Iraq. Both of them were killed in the country of Iraq. Now, both were buried in a certain area, and they erected a golden mosque as a memorial to these men. In fact, the Shiites go every year. They couldn't do this under Saddam Hussein for like 29 years. He stopped them from doing it. But now that the U.S. troops are there were 6 million Shiite Muslims that went into the city to celebrate the memorial of the death of these men that were killed in that area centuries and centuries ago. And you could see that sometimes on the news where they're doing that. So here's where the story gets very interesting, and I want you to follow me carefully. We've got to abbreviate this, go through it quickly. The son of the 11th Imam was a young boy that disappeared. They were afraid that the other groups of Muslims, the Sunni Muslims, were going to kill him, so he escaped in a well. Some say he's hiding in a cave, but he escaped in a well in this major city. And the cities that are really the most prominent for this belief are the city of Samarra, Iraq, and you've got the area of Karbala, both which are constantly in the news. And so the 12th one disappeared. So eventually, after the death of Muhammad and after the death of some of these imams, there was a teaching called the occultation. It goes something like this, that at the end of days, now this is not in the Quran, this will be in the Hadith, and this will be in Islamic tradition. At the end of days, now this is the Shiite. Let me go back to the map so you can see where this is coming from. This teaching originates very heavily in Iran, where over 98% of the population is Shiite Muslim. Then you've got 60% in Iraq that would agree with them, that there is coming in the end of days someone called the Mahdi, or we say the Mahdi. When the Mahdi comes to power, he will initiate a time of peace and a time of Islamic justice. According to some Muslims, are you ready for this? He will rule the world for 7 years. He will appear on a white horse. He'll be riding a white horse when he appears. And eventually what he will do is he will go into Jerusalem and he will convert the Jews and Christians to Islam. And anyone that does not convert is beheaded. Now in Revelation chapter 20, we know that there is a beheading of people who will not reject the testimony of Jesus Christ. We also know that in Revelation chapter 6, we see a rider coming on a white horse at the beginning of the tribulation period. So these things that the Muslims are expecting seem to fit very clearly with the warnings John gave in the Bible concerning a man called the Antichrist. Now, here's where the story picks up, and I want to share this with you. There are some of the signs that the Mahdi will come to power. Now, and this can change overnight. This could change in no time. But you know, there is a leader in the country of Persia, in the country of Iran, who has called for the destruction of Israel and the destruction of America. Now, he only has a certain amount of time to rule, and he's already beginning to lose power. But if this man could do what he wants to do, he has said that the Mahdi has appeared to him in a dream and told him to prepare the country of Iran for his arrival and for his appearance. And this particular man is very apocalyptic in nature. And so he feels like there has to be a destruction of Israel and the United States in order for the Mahdi to be able to take control and to take power. Now, here's what you've got to understand. People are always saying, why don't we just pull our troops out? You know, they don't want us there. Well, here's the question. Why don't some of the Muslims want us there? If you understand the teaching of the Mahdi, you'll understand why. Because the Mahdi is supposed to be like a theocracy. He is supposed to hear the voice of God directly and be raised up by God directly. Nobody voting him in, nobody asking him to take power. If democracy works in Iraq, I want everybody to hear this. If democracy works in Iraq, where a democracy government is set up and all the people have the right to vote, then the Mahdi will never be able to fulfill the expectations of the Shiite Muslims and take over the country of Iraq as long as democracy is working. So as long as our troops are there, and we're not there for this reason, but this is an interesting point, as long as our troops are here, it hinders the Iranian version of the Mahdi taking possession of Iraq. And here's the reason why. Because the Persians in Iran believe that the Mahdi is supposed to raise up out of the territory of Iraq. This is where it gets real interesting here. So when the Mahdi comes, he's going to sweep all of this territory under his control. He's going to raise up a huge army. He's going to come in and destroy the country of Israel and the infidels. Now, what's interesting is, right before the war broke out, I had dinner with a gentleman that's in the military, and he began to share this with me. He said, do you know there's a man named Muqtada al-Sadr that is in the country of Iraq raising up what he calls the Mahdi army? I said, what in the world is this guy doing? He said, well, he's got 500 students, seminary students that are with him now, but he claims he's going to raise up the Mahdi army. This man, whose name is Muqtada al-Sadr, has moved from 500 seminary students to the latest figure, 60,000 men of the Mahdi army. Now, why would he do that? Well, I personally believe al-Sadr is trying to set himself up as the Mahdi because he wears the black banner on his head, and there is a hadith that says, and the hadith, of course, is a writing in an Islamic book that allegedly is a statement that Muhammad made. Here's what it says. When you see the black banners coming from Khurasan, then go to them even if it means crawling over the snow. The deputy of Allah, the Mahdi, will be among them. It is also reported that Muhammad said the black banners will come from the east and their hearts will be as firm as iron. So in other words, when you see the Shiite Muslims wearing the black turbans, they have set themselves up to be the guardians of the Mahdi and the guardians of this man's kingdom, which he's going to form at the end of days. Now, what is interesting is here is one of the statements about what will happen when the Mahdi comes. You ready? There will be a great war break out between the east and the west. There will be strong fighting. Very many people will be killed. Then the Lord will command Al-Mahdi al-Hayy as-Salam to appear. He is in a cave, in a big, deep cave. No one can approach it. Jinns or genies, that would be spirits, are protecting and guarding him. So, isn't that interesting? Now, I'll tell you, the man who always tried to set himself up as the Mahdi, according to the men at Gitmo Bay, was bin Laden. He would even write on a blackboard, the awaited one, and tried to set himself up. And that's one reason he hides in the cave, because he thinks he's going to one day emerge from this cave and everybody's going to accept him. Now, let's go back to some of the things that are happening here, because I don't want to leave anything out. I want you to understand what we're saying here. The conflict in Iraq is spiritually about demonic powers that are moving in this part of the world. Politically, it's about liberating a group of people from a dictator, but prophetically, it's a prophetic battle. Now, here's what's very, very, very interesting, and I want you to pay careful attention to what I'm going to say here. That they call him the 12th Imam, who was the son of the 11th, who disappeared. The Persians, and I'm going to say Persia, the Persians believe that he will appear in Iraq and he will come out of this well, and when he comes out, that they have to have the army ready for him to take this army and to be able to come to power. So as long, again, as American troops are here, it's hindering this concept and this theory of this Mahdi coming to power. But watch how the battle's taking place in Iraq between the Sunnis and the Shias. There was a mosque that was built which was called the Gold Dome Mosque, all right? Now, this This mosque was built in 944. The gold was put on it in 1904, and it's where the 10th and the 11th imams were buried that were killed by the Sunni Muslims. It's a Shiite mosque. Now, here's what happened. In the city of Samarra, Iraq, February 22nd, 2006, bombs were blown off at the went off at the Gold Dome Mosque, which is adjacent to the mosque where the 12th imam is supposed to appear, and it completely blew the roof off the mosque and destroyed it. Now, why would a group of Sunnis dress up like policemen and go into a Shiite mosque and blow it up? Because they don't want the Mahdi of the Shiite branch to appear in this area, so they tried to blow up the mosque where he's going to appear. Then the Shiites, on the other hand, went into another city where the Sunni Muslims believe the Mahdi is going to appear, and they blew up a mosque. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is the Muslims have apocalyptic teaching. Listen to this. They call it the day of uprising, the day of separation, the day of reckoning, the day of awakening and sending forth, the last day, the encompassing day, the hour. They have all sorts of prophecies concerning what they believe is going to happen. One of their big prophecies is that the big powers between the East and West are going to fight each other, and the East is going to win, and the West is going to be destroyed. Here are some of the signs of the last days. Let me just read these to you. The Syrian army will attack him, but will be defeated and destroyed in the desert. When this happens, both Iran and Syria will unite to pledge their allegiance to the Mahdi. Did you hear what it said? That's a belief that Syria and Iran, the Persians, are going to unite. He will take Turkey through force. This is the Mahdi. After uniting all of Islam, he will take over the entire world in the name of Islam. Muhammad predicted the conquest of Spain, which some believe will occur under the Mahdi. Number 4, under the Mahdi's leadership, there will be great prosperity, including gold, silver for his faithful followers. The book of Daniel even mentions that. He will be over the treasures of Egypt and over the gold and the silver. It's very interesting. Number 5, after this is accomplished, the Mahdi will rule for 7, how long is the tribulation? 7 years in length, or 9 years, depending on which tradition you follow. And then the end of the world will come, followed by the judgment of Allah. Now, my point is, if you compare these signs to what the Bible says, it's very interesting because according to them, the Mahdi will unite the Muslim world, and the Antichrist will bring 10 kings together under his subjection, Revelation 17:12. The Mahdi will bring gold and silver to his followers. Daniel said he will honor his God with gold and silver, Daniel 11:38. The Mahdi will rule for 7 years. The tribulation is 7 years in length, Daniel 9:27. It says he will take over Turkey. The Bible says in Daniel 11:40, the king of the north will push at him. Syria and Iraq will submit to the Mahdi. You look at all of these. What I'm saying is, if you look at the expectations of these Muslims concerning the Mahdi, then all the biblical warnings about a man called the Antichrist fit the description of what they're expecting. Now, they don't call the Mahdi the Antichrist. They have something called Ad-Dajjal that they believe is going to be like an Antichrist. It's going to appear before the Mahdi does. So the point is that everything that's taking place right now seems to be pointing us to what will eventually take place with the war of Gog and Magog. Now, one thing that's taking place, and this is very important that you understand this, that the country of Iran, let's go back here because this is the main country mentioned in the invasion of Ezekiel 38 and 39. Again, Shiite Muslim, Shiites here, 50% Shiite in Syria, Hezbollah connected to the Shiite. Can you see how the Shiite Muslim group is trying to take over this part of the world? So what I suspect is this: after the U.S. pulls out, which we will do that eventually, of Afghanistan and Iraq, we're going to see things happening. Now, Iran, there could be an attack on Iran because of its nuclear program by Israel and by the United States, which will trigger this entire area into a battle, or will cause Persia to capitulate for a short period of time. But the point I'm making is this, and I hope coming on and just sharing these things with you has helped give you a better understanding. My point is simply this, that everything that's happening right now with the wars in the Middle East, everything that's happening right now with Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, all of this is not Gog and Magog. It is a preview to setting it up. And that's the point I want to make. The nations are aligning themselves. Those nations mentioned there in the book of Ezekiel. Iran used to be a monarchy. It used to be pro-Western. Libya, same way, used to be pro-Western. And we're not saying that they can't go through a season of democracy where we go back to the iron and the clay. I believe that iron could be Islam and the clay could be democracy, but it doesn't mix according to the book of Daniel. So my point is that we're really really living in those times where if the world, those in the world who are not saved, it's very frightening for them. Those of us who know the Lord Jesus Christ, have been born again, that know the Bible, we have nothing to fear, but it's exciting to watch. And what we should be praying for is this. We should be praying that for all the people that live in this part of the world have the opportunity to hear the prophetic message, have the opportunity to hear the message of Christ, and have the opportunity to at least hear it so that they can ask the Lord to come into their heart and life. And I encourage believers everywhere not only to pray for our tribulation,